one of the things that I've found out is, when you're having problems, everything becomes about you. I mean, you're at all these meetings, everything you're doing, and the worse you are, the more everybody's concerned, the more you're inadvertently you become centered, focused on yourself, right? And one of the keys is to get out and care for somebody else. To try to get out and one of the things that I did was on a daily, I have a whole program now, but one of the things is like starting off the morning in a thankful mode. And it's funny, just like you do with other drills, I'd start off and I'd say, okay, I'm going to go through everything I'm thankful for. And it'd be like 2 minutes. You generalize, you're like, I'm thankful for the day. But as I started to progress, all of a sudden it started to get to like 45 minutes because you start noticing all the things you're thankful for. But part of that was also at the end of that session is to say, okay, who am I going to reach out to today to care for? Because you want to get out of yourself. You want to start realizing that you have value in life. And there's a lot of friends that I have that some that didn't make it even. You get so centered on yourself and you get so worried about your things, and then you get so just caught up in thinking you don't even really matter to the world anymore, matter to anything anymore. And one of the best things to do is to get out and care. So yeah, it's a big part of it.
Well, and so the message we always try to give is like, look, it is possible to do this. And then people get into, okay, well, if it's possible, what are the mechanics? And so, just like with you, you kind of found us because you were researching hyperbaric chambers. And so one of the things we run into is like, are you guys, convincing people that we're telling them the truth?
Yeah.
Okay, because, well, are you really that much different or better than hyperbaric chambers? And then the next thing that, we always have to deal with is like, we've got the adaptive contrast and helping people understand why that's so important. Because like, well, laying in a hyperbaric chamber is one thing, and then, okay, well, exercising with extra oxygen is something else, and then helping them get to the point of saying, okay, here's this other level. Right. And so one of the things that if you can, sort of speak to these elements in the process. Yeah. And then the second thing is that, I was writing my questions. I'm like, well, one of the things about LiveO2, especially with the AC feature, is it's sort of a gateway drug back to being a badass athlete.
Yeah, I would say to fully being alive. You and speaking, it's funny. I kind of worked as a guinea pig for us here at the Pacific Clinic. I was going to go to other clinics. I had already been, to whatever. Like everybody's been through this. I've been through 3 or 4 neurologists and different doctors, and you always have the people who have the magic pill. If you take this, you're going to be okay. This one supplement or whatever. And I'm not putting any of that stuff down, but the realization for me was to get there, I got to do it all. And you have to stack things and you got to put it together and do it all. But it starts for us here. It starts with the contrast therapy. And how I got to that was I was looking at, I won't name names, but I was looking at going to a clinic that was a hyperbaric, clinic. And I do believe in hyperbaric, by the way. I think that there's some benefits from it. But the things that I looked at is that if you really, and I'm kind of a research freak, even when I couldn't really think too well, I'm still a research freak. But when you look at the research, man, you're talking 40, 60, 90 sessions. Well, start doing the math financially. And where I was at, I had to look at it financially. And I was like, geez, so I'm going to be 40 sessions in some other city or 60 sessions before I even see if this is even starting to help. It's the risk of the financial was big for me. The thing that brought me to LiveO2 and then talking to you guys was when I started watching your videos and starting to try to understand it, it just made sense. I mean, it's just like common sense. You look at a hyperbaric, you're going in there and you're trying to force oxygen into the tissue, and it can do that, but at the same time, you're almost fighting your own battle because you're trying to get more oxygen in, but oxygen is a vasoconstrictor. So you're in there for like 2 hours trying to fight this battle. You got to stay there for, I found in my experience, and I did 30, 40 sessions, by the way. I found that you have to stay in there at least an hour and a half. And so you're fighting yourself. You're trying to get oxygen into you and at the same time constricting where it's going. And then
let me inject a little piece of information. I had the opportunity or privilege of debriefing Joe Namath, and I don't remember the exact number, but he had to do somewhere between 80 and 160 sessions in a full-blown medical chamber to affect his recovery.
Well, he had more money than me.
I think he's got more money than about everybody else I know.
Yeah.
But anyway, please continue. But people saying, the first one would be, well, is LiveO2 going to be able to do more for me, or at least as much as a hyperbaric chamber would? And then you get into the practical ramifications, which is, affordability and also velocity. Okay, so here's another really interesting. So you said you did about 40 hyperbaric chambers. How much, so when you responded to hyperbaric, how well did you compare, or how fast was your response to LiveO2 compared to what you experienced with the hyperbaric?
It was, it's just night and day. There's no real comparison. What I got out of the hyperbaric was, and it's a problem for some of us that have a lot of concussions, is I had terrible tinnitus. I could barely hear people talk. And it had gotten worse over the last 10, 15 years, and this last couple of years it just got horrible. I felt like the hyperbaric worked for that and was effective. I felt like that was probably the most effective part of what hyperbaric gave me. Everything else, I just didn't really have results. And again, to your point with Joe Namath, I only did 30, 40 sessions, so it's like, maybe I would have went longer. But now you go to LiveO2, and to me it just made sense. When I heard you start talking about CO2 and nitrogen dilating, I was just like, wait a second, now this makes sense. So, where 70% or more, whatever it is, of the blood flow goes through the small capillaries, and where we're trying to get the blood is in these small capillaries, not some, that's where the difference maker is, if you will. So how do we get these little bitty capillaries to take more oxygen? And so now all of a sudden I was looking at the hyperbarics and going, well, that just really doesn't make sense. If it's constricting, it's not making sense for the key areas that I need. So great for wound care or great for tinnitus or whatever, but it's not affecting that situation. LiveO2 I got on, and frankly for me it was about session 4 or 5. And I start, the other thing that happens when you have, where I was, and at the time I should probably just explain, you guys kind of know, but I was having a couple, 2-3 seizures a month. Felt like I was losing my mind. I started realizing that this had blown up my life entirely. And I'm not, let me make sure I say this. I'm not using that as an excuse. I've talked to some of our patients now. I say, listen, what we did and what we've done in our lives, we have to take responsibility for. But at the same time, it's so nice to know there's some reasoning and starting to understand how the physical affects the emotional. For me, I look at my life and I just go, oh my gosh, what happened? That's where I was at, is that I just couldn't finish things. I just, emotionally, mistakes, relationships. I was joking with a friend in the NFL when I was talking to him about coming to our clinic. I said, how's it going with your family? And he goes, which one? And that's a normal response from football players, and people in life. But the fact is like you find the first thing that comes is you start blowing up relationships. You start having emotional highs and lows that are just ridiculous. You have these problems, and for me that started when I was 30 years old.
Wow. How long did you play football? Give us a little summary of your football history, if you please.
Yeah, I didn't play long. So my football career, and it was interesting. I was talking to a guy from Stanford about this. You don't have to. Everyone thinks, well, you didn't play 12 years, so why would it happen to you? You played quarterback. It wasn't like you're getting hit all the time. But what I've started to find out was that it happens from usually you have a one major. And for me, believe it or not, my major was when I was 17. When I was 17, it's funny, I scrambled out of the pocket, one of those where I jumped way up in the air and they caught me at the knees and I slammed down. Well, when they found me in those days, they didn't have the feels like they do now, I was slammed down on a sprinkler head. And it knocked me out for at least 12 hours, maybe 16 hours out cold. I mean, I'm now out where I was not there, let's put it that way, but I was out cold for probably at least 3 or 4 hours. And so that was a major. And in those days, you know, you thought, well, if you come back and you could read and whatever, you're ready to roll. But that was the major. But I thought that I was over that. And then in college, I had what they call a set. And a set is, I can remember one game, you know, where you go first half, I got a concussion, got some broken ribs too. They were really dealing with the ribs. What they didn't realize is the concussion was pretty bad. And then we lost the lead, so the coach was like, "You gonna go back in? We need you to go back in." I go back in. I couldn't talk. My center still laughs about it. He said he had to call the plays because I didn't even know really where I was at. And then I get hit again finally, and I was finally knocked out of the game. And I don't remember the rest of that weekend. The next week we played in Arizona, and I was still having problems with the lights and, you know, different things like that. And because I had broken ribs, they came after me. And when they come out, you know, they're trying to blitz a lot. And so the first half, I threw for 300 and some yards and 3 touchdowns because, you know, we were catching them in the blitz. Well, they finally got to me. And when they did, I don't remember the rest of the game, and I don't remember the rest of the week till the next Tuesday. So the guy from Stanford is telling me, there's your set. You know, you got hurt in that first half one week, another hit, and then another hit the next week, and those 3 are all combined into a set. Your brain never got a chance to heal. So I went on and played, you know, I turned pro my junior year, went up to the CFL. Maybe I was already making crazy decisions because that was a really stupid decision, but I went up to the CFL. I was there for a few years. I had another concussion in the CFL. I was having other problems and pretty much, you know, was done. So I didn't really have much of a career. So to me, it was like, how could it be from that? It wasn't until I was, you know, after going through blowing up a family, blowing up my life. But when I was about, I guess 35, no, I was probably 40. I found myself in the fast lane of a freeway, sitting in a car, and somehow the cop knew I wasn't drunk or on drugs. I don't know how, but I was just sitting there in the fast lane. I just remember him shining the light in the window and going, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I have no idea." And he's like, "Do you know where you're at?" And I remember just looking around going, "No, I have no idea." He goes, "Do you know what state you're in?" And I had no idea. But again, normal idiot football player here, I didn't even go to the doctor. I was like, look, I must have just been really tired or something. I don't know. Just take me home. And that was the first one. And then about a couple years after that, I had it happen 3 or 4 more times. And then I started locking up and having more of a seizure. At first, they were saying, well, maybe it was Parkinson's. You know, the guy from Stanford was the guy who goes like, dude, you're wondering what it is? We know what it is. You don't need to have all these tests to find out what it is. And then about, I guess 5 years ago, I really started having more and more of it. And just, the depression, emotional problems, I did have shaking, and then the speech started to get bad. I got all the way down to a 19 on a Montreal test, and I was on as much seizure medicine as I could possibly take. It's what the doctor told me. He couldn't give me any more, and I was still having seizures. I was on Alzheimer's medicine. I was on antidepressants. I was on, you know, who knows? I can't even remember it all. But a bunch of stuff. And finally, I got to the point about 2 years ago where my doctor said, listen, I don't know what else there is we can do for you. You need to to just deal with this. And he's a really funny guy, a good guy. He said, I said, so a 19 on a Montreal test, what happens when I get to like 16? He goes, don't worry about it, you won't remember. But
oh God.
Anyway, it was so, and I was having even hallucinations, kicked out my window. I mean, there was a lot of, I could go on and on, as they say. I call it a six-pack story to hear it all. It's a lot of stuff to talk about, but.
Well, the thing we like to go there would be, helping, your community and the other people that are in these kind of situations is like, okay, yeah, you've been there. And I mean, I'm stunned at some of these stories, like sitting in the fast lane. That's like, dude, and having the seizures. I mean, you talk about wrecking a quality of life.
Yeah, I mean, I had two other ones like that I'm just lucky to be alive, where I ran into a wall and was in a snowbank and just like sitting there, and somebody, I almost feel like there was this angel or something, because I still don't know who this was. Somebody picked me out of this snowbank, took me and walked me home, put me on the couch, and my roommates even heard him talk, but I still don't know who that was. But anyway, wow. Weird stories like that of where you just keep going through it. But the thing is like, to start, the hardest part is to start. And to start, I just start saying, that's it, man. If I'm going down, I'm going down swinging. And you start going at it. And I took
Steve?
This. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'd like to get one more thing on the record here. Okay, because I'm thinking about all the other kids that were like you are way back when. Okay, as of right now, we have LiveO2 in 2 NFL training rooms. Do you feel you know enough to make some comments about how your life might have been different if you'd have had this tool to train with and recover yourself while you were still on the field?
Yeah, well, I'm doing that now. We have a thing at our clinic. We do a baseline on people. We do a QEEG, we do a balance, we do the cognitrax, we do a baseline on people. And every kid should have a baseline. I can't imagine what it would be like to have seen when I was 16 what my brain was like before all this started happening. So first of all, I like to say get baselines. Second is I still love football and I still love sports, and I think you can play them responsibly for yourself responsibly if you're doing what you're saying. If these things are in your training rooms and these are the things that you're working on a daily or as needed basis, but I don't say, it's not, don't wait till you're hurt. But anyway, long story short, I fully agree with that, is that these things should be everywhere and should be a full program that these guys can use on a weekly basis. This is what everybody I talk to, it's like, and I have all my friends. I got a tattoo here on my arm of a friend of mine who was going through the same thing I was going through, except for he committed suicide. Mm-hmm. And he did it with me on the phone. And, I look at guys like that and I go, man, if we would have just had this, if I could have just talked to Chris and said, look, dude, let's go sit by a fire and talk about this and then let's do something. But I look back at every football player I talk to, and everybody out there who plays football knows this thing, is that I thought, this is almost funny, you think on Sunday after the game, you think that fog is probably because you drank too much beer or whatever. Is it? Because all I know is that Sunday, and every player will tell you on Monday, you're at class, you're sluggish, you're kind of like, man, you kind of feel out of it. It's the letdown from the game. Is it? And that's my question to all these guys, is like, is it really? Or should have instead on Sunday after the game, should we been doing LiveO2? Should we be doing we have what we call an SSR, a full protocol. Should be doing this the day after the game? Absolutely. That's what you should be doing to recover. And as you know, even recover from the physical things, not just the mental things. So yeah, 1,000%, it should be in every locker room.
Well, one of the things we did last year, I've been trying to get it in front of some of the high schools and stuff, which is I call the program NeuroAssure, but it's basically, give them a test similar to what you took, and then they take the test, and then periodically later they take the test again, and if they've got any decrease in neurological function, that says, hey, you need to go do some LiveO2 training. And that's not assuming they're using LiveO2 for personal performance optimization. But, when I compared this against the Marines and some special forces guys, there's enough improvement in neurological performance and physical performance that says, if you get hurt and you've got this tool to hand, it can really help. And I don't mean to take off with the conversation, but you've been there. You've been in the locker room, and you can visualize, and you've been through all the way downhill. How many years was it between when you first started experiencing these problems and when you met LiveO2?
15, 20.
Okay.
Long time. But to your point, and on that baseline, so just throwing this out, kind of self-plugging on our Pacific clinic, but, the guy that owns Pacific Clinics, Cadwell's built with the University of New York, built the norms for EEGs, right? They kind of know the brain. And so we have this thing of this baseline that we want to make available where a high school can actually get an EEG out there and all their team. And that with, like you're saying, the cognitive facts, things like that, where it's all done. And now they can, check it later, and we're here. And we happen to know most of the really good neurologists out there. I don't, Carl does. So that we can actually have the great people read these things too. The other thing I found out about EEGs, of course, we use a QEEG, which quantitative EEG looks more at the deep structure of the brain and gives you a lot more data. But I did find out that EEGs and QEEGs, they're as good as the person reading it. And it's like a football coach. A lot of people coach football, and there's some that coach it really well. So we're trying to make that available to high schools as well.
Yeah, the EEGs are nice. But okay, so just for the record, how much of a change in your own EEG did you see over the last, say, 9 months when you've been using LiveO2?
Pretty significant. I have a area in my brain that when we first took it was, and I can't answer this exactly, but the voltage was like 20% less in this one area compared to the rest of the brain. And now I think it's around like 10 or something. It's greatly improved. But the thing about it is, the LiveO2, the SSR that we do I always tell people it's like, working out. You don't just work out and then you go, okay, I'm good. You have to continue to work out. And I think with the problems that I have, I know that for a fact, is that if I want to keep and continue to get better, I got to keep working. It's only been 9 months since I took that test, and you see the difference now. So what's it going to be in another 9 months? I can't sit there and go, okay, that's great. I'm good to go. It's a continued process. But Mark, back to your one thing, because I took you way off course. On the LiveO2, to us, or to me, I came to the point where it was just like, okay, so if I can dilate those capillaries and actually get oxygen in there, and I can mix them with everything else I'm doing. And again, it's a lot of emotional stuff. I set out and say, okay, this is going to be the best week I've lived so far, because next week's going to be greater. And I just, every week, having that kind of a atmosphere to keep going forward. But then the LiveO2, all of a sudden I'm going the 4th time, 5th time, and I'm going, now I'm feeling this oxygen, and I'm feeling this courage, if you will, and this light at the end of the tunnel. And you think, you can't help, you start going, maybe I'm just feeling better. No, how you go back and start doing the LiveO2, and you feel it every day, that kind of new light. And that's what I say about the physical penetrating the emotional, and how they correlate. And then, we did everything else. So we did the right diet, and to help get the inflammation out of there. I believe that one of the things that got me off the seizure medicine was the diet. We went really hard. I like to say elimination diet, which is a little different than saying a carnivore diet or a keto. But started out, it was eliminate everything and let's get the inflammation out of there. And Carl is a genius when it comes to that kind of stuff. And so we really put me on something that really helped. So it's everything. But straight out, end of the day, we have 2 things that we think are amazing. One is and we call it a Superset stack recovery protocol, but we use the LiveO2 for everything. And we mix it, and this is kind of interesting, we mix it with the whole body vibration from the Vibrogenics. Vibrogenics is interesting because it's sound vibration. So theoretically, and there's research to prove it, it penetrates better than mechanical vibration. So we get on the LiveO2 and we get on the Vibrogenics with the LiveO2 on still, and you're getting this, all your body's contracting from the vibration. That's what whole body vibration does. And then we use non-weight bearing vibration, put it on our head. And I was the first one to try that. At first they were like, dude, I don't know if we should do that, but it's perfect. And we're helping that saturation. So that's our superset is that, but everything we do involves the LiveO2 with that. And that's the effective protocol that's worked for us.
Wonderful. You ready to have some fun and take a look at your numbers?
Yeah.
All right. If you scrape down on the screen, you should see my screen share where we've got before-after presentation of your neurological panel scores. If you just page down on the conference, Can you see it?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
All right. So the first test we did was what? December 20th of 2019. And then the second test is roughly 9 months later. So, two things on the point, which is I want to talk about the, relative increases. And so as I look across the score, basically all of your scores went from a low score to, a low score to a higher score in each case. And that many of your scores, like all but 1, 2, 5, went from a first percentile, as in a red, to either a yellow, a green, or a dark green, meaning that your brain was materially working better. So, if we scrape down here, neurocognition, sort of, this is a general number, sort of everything. Memory improved, still got some headroom. Verbal memory improved, still got room for improvement. Visual memory was about the same. Huge improvement in psychomotor speed. Reaction time went from terrible to excellent, which is something you'd expect from a former NFL. You played quarterback, right?
Right.
You'd expect your reaction time to be, like a rattlesnake, which now it is. Complex attention doesn't show any difference. I believe that. Cognitive flexibility, some improvement. Processing speed, significant improvement. Executive function, significant improvement. Social acuity, significant improvement. Reasoning, I don't know what happened here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the reason is.
Well, no, usually in this case, there might be one of the tests in the sequence where you misunderstood the instructions. Yeah. So I would generally expect to see an improvement across the board. We didn't have scores on those. Simple attention went from very poor to quite good. Motor speed also. So anyway, the thing that I wanted to do or get you to do in terms of your interpretation is, like, as you go through these, the numbers tell one story, which would be like kind of clinical, but you've got your human story. So in your opinion, do the numbers tell the truth in your reality? Like, how reliable or how correlated, how well does this test, the difference in the test results, correlate with your quality of life experience?
Well, I would have even expected it to be higher in what it's doing for my life experience, because and I know I got a lot more room to improve. But even Annette can tell you when we first used to talk, I was having trouble even putting together sentences. Not that I speak great now, but it's a heck of a lot better. I'm running an executive director now of this clinic. I'm able to function, get things done. I was getting to a point, I do a lot of video work. I was at a point where I was actually doing something for a friend of mine with the NFL, where I literally had to call him over and say, dude, I don't know how to run my own camera anymore. I just look at it and I go, I have no idea. And I was always the guy before that they would go to always would figure stuff out, and all of a sudden I couldn't even run my own gear. So now I look at myself, I'm back able to function at a high level. And so I see all the improvements on my cognitive abilities. Even writing, I couldn't hardly write. There's no way I can tell you how bad it was. So all those things improved, but I would say they're pale in comparison to the improving emotionally. and improving in digging life. So that to me is probably the most important part of it. But yeah, I mean, if you you ask people around our clinic, they'll tell you. I mean, they remember I wouldn't really take on conversations because I was scared to do it. I found myself, this is a year and a half ago. I mean, I should show you my dog down here, but I have a service dog who she's now retired, is what I say. But a year and a half ago, she saved my life. I mean, I was lost literally in the mountains, and she walked me out 6 miles to my son. The worst story, right before we started this process, I haven't lived where I'm living right now in the Tri-Cities. I hadn't lived here since I was like 17. I think I lived here for 1 year sometime, but anyway, I haven't lived here forever. And I went to my house I grew up in and was trying to get in the front door, and the people were like, "Dude, who are you?" And I was like, "Wait, I don't live here." And then I went and sat in my truck with my dog, and I was like, "Wait, where do I live? What am I doing in the Tri-City? How did I get it here?" It was just, that was the bottom of the bottom. Just literally it took me probably an hour and a half to figure out how to get back to where I lived. So you take it from that to take it to now. Yeah, all the motor skills and memory, all that stuff is beautiful. But emotionally, man, that's where the gold is.
Got it. I got two more questions I think will really help, because the other things that, people come to us and they wonder is like, when we tell them, stories about how people have done, how truthful have you found what we told you before you bought the product? How well does what we said about the product and how you would respond match to your experience with the product?
Yeah, I'll take it a little bit more here. For me, first of all, I mean, Carl Cadwell, who owns Pacific Clinic, him believing in me, I knew him my whole life, and him saying, "Okay, let's do this." And he talked to you. He's a very, very smart man. He talked to you for about 2 minutes and said, "Let's order it," and ordered it. And, I couldn't be here without Carl. Second is that listening to you, and then Annette's I just love Annette. Annette's one of the greatest trainers, greatest people I've ever met. And the things that you guys told me, and even as Annette was kind of helping me get started in training, she had me taking it easy. She kept me up. But the results are much greater than I would have believed. Now, what you guys told me, you guys told me it was going to be good, but I don't think you guys captured the emotional breakthrough it was going to be in telling me that I experienced. And I just remember times talking to Annette going, this is just unbelievable, and her continuing to push me forward. So I would say you guys undersold it. I would say that Carl was smart enough to figure it out from the first second that it was great, and it took me a while to actually experience it, because I am pretty much a doubting Thomas when it comes to things like this. Got it.
Well, I know you kind of transitioned from, I'll call it, a fellow that needed help to a fellow that spends all day, every day helping others. Can you make any comments about how you see people that you're helping responding to it, and how consistent are their experiences with yours?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing on all fronts, because we have everything from former athletes to people with stroke victims to senior citizens to young people. And across the board, we get results. We also get great results. I have to say, it is like anything else, and I tell my clients this all the time. I say, it's only going to be as good as you want to work. If you're not going to work at it, you're going to get what you deserved, really. And but it is hilarious, is that I've had some people just major depression, PTSD. We have some veterans, and I always say, just give me 3 weeks. Before you make a call, give me 3 weeks, because I know that those first week, first 2 sessions, 3 sessions, 4 sessions, they're going like, yeah, this is all right. It's a workout. And then I watch the fog lift, and I watch emotions change. I have one lady who, man, she really was having some struggles with emotions. and she was just so close. I couldn't get her to do anything. And frankly, I talked to you about her one time. I could hardly get her to drop down into hypoxia. Wouldn't even hardly move. And all of a sudden on the fourth session, all of a sudden you could sit there and see the saturation levels changing. And like in my head, I'm seeing like the capillaries opening. And I watched her. All of a sudden, it was funny. We have one thing we do where I have a kind of a meditation VR that they do afterwards. She was in there on the VR and has a headset, and she was singing and singing this song. And I looked at her husband. And he was like, "Wow," because we saw her 2 weeks earlier. She wouldn't even talk. She was so mad at the world. So I see incredible results, and it seems to me like it's about, for most people, it's around between 4 and the 7th session that they start to feel something. But they're like I said, I tell them, this is a great week, and it's the greatest week you lived so far, but next week's going to be greater. And you see that, so it's like if they'll keep pressing. So I always say, give me 3 weeks, because I know that it's about the period of time where they start to feel the breakthrough. But yeah, across the board, great results.
Awesome. Annette, did I miss any questions that come to your mind?
I forgot she was here.
Yeah, she's on mute. So
I wouldn't have been talking so nice about you if I didn't know you're there. No.
Yeah, come on. I think just listening to you and being myself inspired by your authentic and earnest desire to find your way to wellness for yourself. I mean, it's a beautiful story, and now you're sharing it with other people. And that whole thing around, I had the same experience working with people one-on-one, is that you give them 4 to 7 sessions and the body's going to kick in. And now you've got people integrated on their own mission to do more because of the results. They feel good. They feel empowered. And, I'm always really, in my view, attentive to that initial experience of the emotional. Living with a head injury like that and living with concussion syndrome and all the things that you've been through, you just really needed someone to be right there on your side, walking you through what you needed to do to get back to you.
Yeah.
So I just really appreciated that.
So was Carl.
Steve, I'm going to do one more thing. So, and I already said this question once, but I'd like to see if you can concentrate on the answer. I mean, you've got a long history as an athlete. You've probably been an athlete your whole life. You're challenged as an athlete for a while there in the middle. But a lot of people that have a health issue, they'll get LiveO2 and they'll say, okay, I want to, recover. And then one of the things we like about the contrast and the adaptive is it transitions from a health recovery tool to a training tool, which is, okay, now I want to go out and be an athlete. So if we'll take an NFL player or a high-end athlete, we can really see improvements in their mental performance, which is, similar to what you experienced, but also in their physical performance.
Yeah.
So can you speak to your experience about that, that bridge effect of, I need to get over this health issue, and then the next day you're saying, okay, how can I be a monster athlete, or how can I get back in my athletic, in your experience and with the people that you've worked with? Because, a lot of people get hung up on, okay, well, I'm just getting this because I got X health problem, and position, and that helps them position and understand LiveO2 as a lifetime quality of life tool. So you'll need it and you can use it for the rest of your life. So anything you can say to help our audience understand that?
Well, yeah. So, there's a couple of important things. One, I always crack up. I say this to my clients all the time. I say, come to find out, breathing's good for you. But the fact is like, so us that are athletes or whatever, getting older, all this, but you lose like 1% of your lung capacity per year after like 40 or something like that. And we're not getting the oxygen that we need. And we think we have all these pains and all these problems, and we're blaming it on all these other things. But breathing is pretty doggone important. And even guys like me, I've lost 30 some pounds, 35. I was way big. And I still got to go down probably another 40 to get really healthy. And guess what? 80% is like, everyone doesn't understand that you don't burn calories, you expel calories. And so that's why when you go running, you burn a Snicker bar faster, because you're breathing more. You're getting more carbon out of you, right? Two cells go in, 3 cells go out. So it's an unbelievably effective workout, because you're getting so much oxygen in and so much carbon out. And so I try to help people understand that, the guys that are the kind of aging athletes, that this is, you want to get rid of the aches and pains and injuries and stuff. This is what you got to be doing. You got to get oxygen. And why would you not get the greatest amount of oxygen where you need it the most, which is where the small capillaries are, in the knee that's hurting, in the ankle that's hurting, in the brain that's hurting. And I have one guy who plays for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he's a young buck and great athlete, and he did it because I asked him to do it. But about and that was just saying about session 7, session 8, he's like, dude, I worked out for 2 hours. I came here, I hit the LiveO2, and I feel like I should go work out again. It's like it brings him back. He's saying he does a lot of biking, and he's like, I feel like I got a whole different gear. My lungs are different. I sleep different. And I hear this, he's what? I think he's like 22. These kind of guys. So athletes, it's amazing. You'd be just stupid if you're an athlete to not be on this. And around our place, we have 150,000 square feet of athletes here. It's a pretty nice sized clinic. And we have athletes that are 70, 75, and they're starting to understand this is the difference maker. You want to go, like I was talking to a doctor, actually, he's an orthopod, and I was saying, you want to go climb that one mountain again that we're talking about? We have this one mountain it's a really hard, unbelievable hike. It's like 19 miles plus a bunch of, 6,000 feet up. And I said, this is how you get there. And they're starting to understand that. So it's a huge difference for athletes and for everybody else. But yeah, I don't know if that speaks to it, but.
Well, it speaks to it. I mean, it reminds me of other stories. We have a chiropractor that went ahead and did a little trip to Camp 4, which is at the base of Mount Everest. And he was stunned at how he was the only person in the party that had no problem with altitude, and he was basically keeping up with the Sherpas just fine.
Yeah.
But he was the only one able to do that, and that's because, the other thing I would, just kind of recount, tell me if you think this is a misrepresentation, but when we've done tests of people, where we do like 5 days of LiveO2, and we did one series of 11 weeks. By the end of the first week, the participant working out on LiveO2 for 15 minutes a day had gained about 6.9, 7.9% improvement in VO2 max in 1 week.
Wow.
Okay, and then we've repeated that experiment with some, high-end hockey players. And again, this is my observation, but, their sprint durability, even though they were already tier 1 athletes, was significantly improved by the end of the first week. So that's one. And then once we finished the original experiment, by the end of 11 weeks, the participant had increased his VO2 max by 29.2%.
Wow. Yeah, we don't do VO2 max here, but I know that that's true because I see the changes in their performance and how they're feeling. And then even their performance while they're doing the LiveO2, as you guys know, that you see that change. And, across the board, the thing that LiveO2 is most amazing part, there's two things that every person says. Every person says, I'll give you an example. I got a guy, he's a perennial all-pro up in Canada. He's retired now. He's a 3-time All-American. He says, I never sleep more than 4 hours a night. Since I've got done playing ball, I can't sleep, right? We did our SSR with our LiveO2 on him, and he called me the next morning. He goes, dude, I slept 12 hours. And across the board, everybody who does it, I could start a sleep clinic because I'm telling you, everybody says I sleep so much better. But the other thing I was going to say is that the translation, and what I mean by that is that when you do the LiveO2, you don't just breathe better on LiveO2. it translates to the rest of your life. The rest of the time you're out there, everybody comments. That's the other comment. Everybody comments, I just feel like I'm breathing deeper now. I feel like I even when I'm sleeping, my wife says I'm not even snoring anymore. You hear all these kind of comments, but I feel like I've just breathed. I get more air after, so it translates to their life. So that part, man, I can tell you straight across the board, and I keep pretty good notes. Every single person, those are the two comments. Sleep and breathing more.
Nice.
So can I just add something there about the whole aging process?
Yeah.
You know, same thing for me. I mean, I'm an ex-competitive athlete myself, and I was kind of slowly, unbeknownst, just buying into the whole concept that I was aging and that these arthritic pains that I had that were nurturing old injuries that were preventing me from kind of getting on with it. I had lost all my energy. And, you know, I got into this, I guess I better start thinking about this anti-aging movement. So in my journey and how I got involved and got people going, that my own personal story was 2 weeks later, I'm like, I'm not anti-aging. I'm now 59 for the third year in a row. I'm boomer aging because of what you're talking about. You
Right.
get so much quality of life back. And with our kind of our aging wisdom that we've gathered along the path, I think that our age group is very well positioned to turn our mess into a message very much like you have and start empowering each other to empower others. That's what really inspires me about your story here as well, Steve. I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge that in you.
Well, I tell you what, I'm sorry, Steve. I just got to say this. I think Annette just nailed what we're going to call this episode. Turning my mess into a message.
There you go. I love it. That's great.
Sorry, Steve. You had something to say.
No, I didn't. That was good.
But, you know, Steve, part of you when I first started talking to you was that you were already somewhere being called into your own mission of paying it forward.
Yeah.
I mean, right from the very beginning, you had such a strong desire to, you know, help others. You helped yourself first, and now you've got this living experience standing in front of people. Your belief system is so positive that that's half the energy right there, supporting them to sing while they're riding out. I think it's beautiful.
That's beautiful. You know, like I said, that's why, to me, my self-plug for the Pacific Clinic here is that I really believe we've made it also very cost-effective to do a full program, and we don't even let people just come in for a few days. It's a 9-week thing or longer, and it really is a change, but it is everything. You have to add it all into the ball game. But the center of it all is LiveO2.
Awesome. Steve, I think we got some really good stuff here. If there's anything, you got anything else you want to add as a closing comment?
I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the time. I'll have this probably cut into I'll call it a pilot here. I'll probably have to cut some stuff out because I'm looking at, we got about 50 minutes of conversation, but there's some real nuggets in there. So once again, thank you very much.
Yeah, put it on Rogan. He goes for like 2 hours.
Oh gosh.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, any comments on how our friend Roland's doing? Roman? Any changes yet?
No, it's just really slow. It's all about him wanting to put in the effort. And where I'm at with him right now is when a guy's got some emotional problems like he does with it, what I do is I give them a period of time. I told him, you get a couple weeks where you do it as much as you want to do it for a couple weeks. In a couple weeks, you're going to make a decision that you're going to go for it. And the only one that can make a decision for you to get better is going to be you. And I said, but I'm waiting. It's on you, brother. And so that's what I'm doing with him right now. Because what I don't want is for him to get a negative feeling about going to work out.
Oh, you're right on. You know, everybody's got to follow their own spirit. All right, but hopefully his spirit will light up and lead him where he needs to go.
Yeah, I think it will. I really do. So, all right, guys. All right.
Thank you again. See you later.